the fantastic Eoin McGrath, who's going to be speaking about responsible aggregates. Eoin, take it away.
Uh, Thank you very much, Sarah. I'm hotspotting off my phone because my internet has gone down here, so hopefully it will last through the 10 or 15 minutes. I'm going to try and give a quick overview of a particular aggregate problem that we have in Ireland and that we've been addressing through a collaborative process of research and just to start with GSI, we're the National Earth Science Knowledge Centre in Ireland. We're a line division of the government, so we are actually civil servants. We don't describe ourselves as civil servants usually. We say we're geologists, but ultimately that's what we are. Within the mineral sections within the survey, we work across critical raw materials, historic mines, and construction materials, general minerals in Ireland. And it's construction materials we're going to be talking about today, specifically defective aggregate issues. So GSI itself, if this clicks on, there we go. We are the competent national authority for aggregates within Ireland, and that legislative responsibility. It's aggregates only, it's not concrete, which you'll see is quite important when we come to defective concrete issues. And within this project that I'm going to talk about, our role is to support market surveillance authorities, who are the people who go out and ensure that the products put on the market are fit for purpose, to learn from failures, to pursue research that will prevent those failures in the future, and to provide expert geological advice. Essentially, in the same way that the Attorney General is the state's lawyer and solicitor, we are the state's geologists, and so we have to be available for other departments. Within Ireland, we've had some very unfortunate defective aggregate issues. We had some East Coast pyrite issues, which were prevalent throughout Dublin and Meath and North Wicklow. And through 2023, that has cost the Exchequer in and around 200 million through the Pyrite Board remediation schemes. Then over the past decade, we've seen what has been described as a mica problem in Donegal, and this is what we're going to talk about a little bit today. Now, I could talk about this for hours, so I'm going to try and give a quick flavor of this and then a quick discussion about how we actually collaborate through the research. And essentially, when we got brought into this project, we were looking at it and we said that to our mind and to the mind of some of our collaborators, there was a geological question over the damage mechanism. Is this actually a mica problem? The implication of that is that if we don't fully understand the damage mechanism, then that has severe implications for remediation options. So if we think we're fixing a problem and we're fixing the wrong problem, then that can exacerbate problems down the line and mean that remediation won't be as successful. The most recent estimate is that this is going to be a 3.2 billion euro problem to fix. So there are huge consequences here, both for the people who are living in homes that are crumbling, as you see the picture on the right there, and in terms of the cost to the Exchequer. And what we're trying to do is provide independent, good scientific research to review the standards which are used to determine these remediation options. So what we've done here is we've assessed specific research questions. We've liaised with our National Standards Association, the Department of Housing. We've assessed what the damage mechanisms are, feeding that into risk of retention. Now, the Department of Housing within Ireland has spent, I've put it in as a 750,000. It's closer to €1 million over the past 2 or 3 years via GSI. And that has allowed us to put together an international research team, which spent about €500,000, and then other money for other international researchers from SK, from Petrolab, from SLR, from other universities and other collaborative surveys that we work with, like the survey in Norway. That's a picture of a conference, attendees at a conference in Quebec last year, and every one of those attendees is funded by the Irish government to do some part of their work. So it's a significant volume of work that has been funded by the government to do. And to really talk about how we do this, I think it's really valid to look back, and I've stolen this slide from a colleague of mine, Aoife Braden, so she said I could use it, so that's fine. I'm not going to pretend it's mine, but this is what people think about. They think of how research feeds into policy. We think we have research at the university, they talk to policymakers, and that goes to government. It actually looks a little bit more like this, unfortunately, where people are talking all over the shop. Some people are trying to talk directly to government. Some people are talking to regulators. Some people are talking to policymakers. Some people aren't talking to to anybody of any relevance, and they wonder why their data isn't taken into account. So what we want to do is we want to generate this more structured policymaker researcher relationship where an entity such as GSI can sit at the center, the nexus of this, take the data in and feed it up into policymakers. So what we had back in 2021 was we had a huge number of people doing research, little bits of research, SLR doing research directly for the Department of Housing, Ulster University talking with the Swiss Federal Labs, them talking with us, Petrolab working for NSAI, University of Laval sitting in Canada, being real experts in this area, but nobody in Ireland being aware of the work that they were doing. So what we have to do then is look at this, see how this all feeds into the European ecosystem of how the Parliament deal with it, how the Commission deal with it, how SEN deal with it as well on the European standards, and figure out a way that we can structure this better. And so to go back to what our actual structured policy researcher relationship should look like, and we put GSI into the middle of this, and this is now what we get to. And you can see here that every one of these arrows is a two-way collaborative arrow. It's really, really important that somebody takes responsibility for this collaboration, and that's what we've done in this situation. So we work with Ulster University and their consortium, which is University of Connecticut, CRT, EMPA, University of Laval. We feed data back to them, we feed samples to them, we take the results, we compare those with what we're getting from other research partners, from SLR, from Petrolab, from RSK. We work with our other survey colleagues in Norway, colleagues in Sweden, Finland, and Spain. And then we attend the conferences and see what the state of the art is. And then we act as that gatekeeper through to the policy and regulation and the legislative part of the government, where we give them the advice and the data, and they provide the funding to pursue this work. So we'll talk directly to the Department of Housing. We'll give evidence directly to select committees, joint Oireachtas committees in Ireland, similar to the select committees that you have in Westminster, and we'll work directly with National Standards Association. And it's really, really important that we make sure that everybody who's collaborating has a voice that's heard in this position, because otherwise we don't get the best set of data. So for this particular project, the research outcomes were quite simple. This is not a MICA issue. It sounds like a small little thing to say, but this has had huge knock-on effects. We see a headline here from a Donegal Daily, which is at the heart of the issue, and the headline is "Science is heeded in the latest change to defective concrete block scheme," which is, it sounds like a small throwaway headline, but that's exactly what we want to see as scientists. We want to see that the public recognize that science has a real role to play in this, and that the science comes from a collaborative process. This has changed risk profile significantly, has had some immediate implications in terms of how we standardize construction products and how we make sure that we produce good quality material going forward. And it has also led to significant changes within the defective concrete block scheme. So within 1 week of receiving the results, the Department of Housing made some small changes, which were very, very well received on the ground. And we can point to being a result of this collaborative process that we've gone through. In terms of the learnings for this, and it's really interesting to hear lots of people say some of the same things that we've come up with, and that, in terms of parking your ego, in terms of focusing on your core competency. So we always stay in your lane. It can be a very, very valuable tool as an expert to tell a stakeholder that you don't know something, because that really establishes honesty very quickly. And, they say, well, what do you think of this? I don't know. I do not have a professional opinion on that because I'm not qualified. Know what the knowledge gaps are for responsive research. And we like to divide things up into our responsive and our forecast research. So in the responsive research, you really need to see where are your knowledge gaps, what can you fill through clear research questions, such as this one. What is the damage mechanism? We focus on our competency. We make sure that everybody coming in works solely on their competency. We don't get involved in politics, and we listen to what everybody has to say. When it comes to the foresight analysis, then to go forward, we're trying to see what are the policy priorities coming down the line. Open research calls are really important here, because part of what an open research call will do is it will allow an academic or somebody in a business situation to say, well, I think there's a problem here, and that allows us to assess. So things that I don't even know is a problem. So my unknown unknowns are somebody else's known unknowns. So an academic can come to me and say, well, I think that we have a problem with this and we need to do research. And that's a problem that I'm not even aware of. So if I don't know the problem, then I can't even address a solution. And that allows us to improve a policy response resilience going forward. And none of that is possible unless we work in a team and we understand exactly what everybody contributes to it. To that end, we are hiring people at the moment. So I'll put a last little advertisement in here. Tomorrow is the deadline. It says 4 positions there on a 4-year contract. We're actually hiring 6 people. So we're looking for 2 senior geologists to work going forward on this project and to work on responsible construction materials, quality of quarried aggregates in Ireland and all that stuff. And I'm hoping that gives us some time for questions. Sarah, if anybody threw anything in there.
Brilliant. Thank you so, so much for that, Eoin. That's absolutely fantastic. Round of applause, everybody, for the amazing Eoin, as my phone rings from all directions on this end. Eoin, in terms of just, I guess, building on the previous little fireside chat that we had, I am making the grand assumption that in that network of different people that you're trying to communicate with and get them to align on, and especially the little snippet from the media where actually people pay heed to the world of science, etc. In terms of communicating and working with those different groups, how do you make MICA interesting to them?
Um, but you put the numbers up, first of all. This is a big problem. 3 to 4 billion euros is something that gets everybody's attention.
Mm.
It it was challenging at first because what we're doing here is we're challenging assumptions and we're saying that the mechanism that is currently accepted as causing this damage might not be accurate. That is a challenge, and what you really have to do is be accept that you are an expert in this, which sometimes we don't like to do as scientists. We like to kind of hide our light under a bushel a little bit, and you have to make assertive calls at times and say, no, this is what the science says, and we're not backing down from this. We're going to keep bringing this to the table every time. So where you have a piece of data that is of that level of significance, it's important to, I think we'd say, get your ducks in a row and to say, this is what we believe. We're not saying that we're 100% right, but we're saying this is what the evidence shows at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't agree with this, then show us your evidence to say it's something different. And once you start to frame those narratives, I think it becomes a little bit easier when you say, well, we're not saying you're wrong, but we're saying we've looked at it and this is what we've found. You show us your evidence and we'll compare your evidence with the evidence from our collaborators. And then if their evidence doesn't stack up, it becomes quite obvious. And that's why we talk about parking your ego, that, people say, well, if you came up with an idea and now that idea is wrong, well, that's fine. I spent time explaining to people how the mica degradation works, and it's wrong. It's completely wrong. But that was what I understood at the time, and I've changed my mind, and that's fine. And once you explain that to people and say, yeah, I did think that because I read one paper, this paper said XYZ. Somebody said, can you explain that paper to me? I explained what that paper said. And now that we've done some more research into it, I said, oh, well, that paper is actually wrong, because what we would expect to see out of that in terms of damage types of mechanisms of freeze-thaw action, we don't see that.
I think that saying that it's okay to change your mind is so powerful, especially if we're trying to move things forward. And it's a case there where that's an immensely mature thing, I guess, for people to be able to do. And in terms of those personal aspects, so here we are looking at a network of wide-ranging organizations. And I suspect that when you are trying to collaborate with all of them, there are going to be some that are easier to collaborate with others. Some of that might be down to personal reasons or just how easy it is to get hold of somebody or how those different organizations are resourced. how do you deal with the variation in those organizations and making sure that you are maintaining that communication and that consultation and the collaboration with the full spectrum rather than just going, oh, well, I like working with you. Let's
That's
just go do it
that's a
together.
great question. That's a great. I like to work with people nice. So that, yeah, one thing is you make sure that you understand what people's competencies are,
Hmm.
and you make sure that you engage them on those competencies. Um, in terms of, a lot of it is contract management in terms of saying, well, we expect to see these results from you. We understand that labs can be delayed, and we understand that, that there are issues beyond people's control, but you need to explain those to us and tell us about those, and then we're fine with it. You also need to, I think, from our point of view, you need to be able to speak multiple different languages, multiple different scientific languages. You need to be able to communicate with, politicians and elected politicians who, one of them gave a really good explanation to me in a particular hearing, a government hearing, where he said, "Can you imagine we're leaving cert, so high school students, and can you pitch it at that? Because I think the intelligent non-experts is the phrase we like to use for people. So they're not stupid, but you need to be very clear about what you're explaining, particularly when you are so deeply embedded in the vagaries of concrete minerals and thaumasite and ettringite and these things that that only form in concrete and really weird esoteric minerals, and you're trying to then go and talk to somebody who is maybe a primary teacher is their profession, and they're now an elected representative, and they just want to make sure that their constituents are looked after in terms of the houses that are falling down. And having to change how you present data and how you communicate is really, really important.
Yeah, I really love that concept of intelligent non-experts. That sounds very respectful with regard with regards to all of that. Owen, I'm sure that you're going to be able to stick around and answer more questions as they go into the chat. I know some of them were coming in on WhatsApp as we were just speaking there. But Owen, thank you so, so much for bringing your story into the table. And yeah, especially that concept that it is okay to change your mind. I think that's really powerful. So, everyone, please put your hands together for the fantastic Owen.